Hello and welcome to episode 26 of Sights on Sinnoh, the anime podcast going over Diamond and Pearl as we get closer to Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. This week we're covering episodes 44 and 45 of the anime, and this is of course episode 26 of the podcast. With me this week I have Brady. How has your week been, Brady?
Hey, pretty good. Can't complain. It's 4-day week. We had or work week.
Mm-hmm.
Had Monday off for 4th of July, so that was nice.
Yeah,
Got to play a lot of video games.
nice, nice. What have you been playing?
I've been playing Monster Hunter Stories 2. It just released today that we're recording this, but I was playing the demo beforehand because you can transfer the process or the progress over. So I've been doing that, and I've also been doing some Sword and Shield like usual.
Got it. Cool. I have also been playing a demo, but for a very different game called Neo: The World Ends with You. Have you heard of that one?
No, but it sounds like the Matrix.
There's some Matrix vibes in there. It's essentially also a sequel to an older game that came on the DS, like 2011 maybe. That was just called The World Ends with You. And out of nowhere, they kind of just announced a sequel. The original game is getting an anime adaptation. So I thought this was a cool way to kind of learn more about that world because I've seen like videos about it. And then with this game, it's actually made for the Switch. They tried putting a port of the original game on the Switch, but it doesn't really work as smoothly because the original game was really reliant on having a dual screen, and you can't really do that on just the Switch. So, so far, combat feels awesome in this one, so I'm excited to see how the full game turns out. I think sometime this month as well, actually.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It's all about collecting pins and using powers to fight things and make sure that you come back from the dead because, spoiler, you're dead to start the
Oh,
game.
well, you start off dead, and then you have to collect things to like resurrect. Oh man, that sounds like something I'd be interested in.
Yeah, it'd be kind of like resurrecting old forgotten Pokemon from ancient times, which we will get to in part 2 of this episode. For now, we're actually going to be covering a very different Pokemon in the episode all about Hipp-o-sis. Now, before I get into that and get the blurb out, what do you think about the Pokemon Hipp-o-sis in general before this episode?
Before this episode, I thought it was just a weird kind of Pokemon. Kind of derpy looking. I
Mm-hmm.
know it evolves into Hippowdon, and that's actually pretty strong. And Hippowdon is pretty cool because they have like the male and the female form. I can't remember if the Hippopotas has a male and female form, because all of the ones in this episode were the same color scheme.
Yeah, I think it does, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's like a different shade of brown as well. It has like a brown snout, but then the nostrils are still the same kind of pale yellow.
Yeah, time to check Pokemon Go.
Is it? Yeah, it's in there. It should be in there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that both forms are or both evolutions are male and female differences.
Yeah, it's very interesting and also misleading people into thinking it's a shiny
Yes.
if if they're not well informed. But you know, I wonder how that misconception might come back in the remakes later this year. But before we get there, let's actually jump into this episode and talk about episode 44, Mass Hipp-o-sis. Hipp-o-sis? Something like just go with it. The Japanese title is Save the Lost Hippopotas, keeping it nice and simple. Ash's Churchwig brings everyone's attention to a young hippopotas and stranded on the ledge of a cliff. So this is where the blurb starts, so let me give some context here. Ash and his Pokemon and Dawn and Brock and everyone are just having their lunch, and they're getting ready to pack up and leave when they can't find where Churchwig is. Until someone comments that Churchwig might have gone for an afternoon stroll. And there they find Churchwig leading the gang over to a cliff where a hippopotas is stranded on a cliff. And with the help of Brock and a rope to relay him down, Ash is able to rescue the Hipp-o-sis and bring it back to safety. What do you think about the cold open to this episode?
I hate cold opens. They just need to stop. I don't think they
Mm-hmm.
do, but they need to stop.
It was kind of all over the place. Like, we get the idea Hipp-o-sis is the featured Pokemon of this episode, but not a lot of value besides that.
I don't know if there's been an episode yet that I'm like, oh wow, that was really good that they did the cold open. I'm glad they did it. No, not one yet.
They've been decent at best. Like the ones I've enjoyed the most, but for the most part, they're just like, you can skip this. I don't know why they have it. And the opening for this episode does have everyone just kind of eating around a table. The Pokemon are on the floor with their food plates. Did you notice a little detail with Baniri?
Yeah, so I noticed that this might be the same detail you're talking about, but I noticed that all of the Pokemon were like hanging out in groups, like Ash's Pokemon, Brock's Pokemon. I almost said Misty. Oh my gosh! And then Don's Pokemon. They were all in their separate groups, eating or hanging out, whatever. But Baniri, I believe, was with Ash's Pokemon.
Yeah, and we have a little cute moment where they're all being put back in their Pokeballs, and Baniri just hops back over to Don's Pokemon. Like, just very innocently, like, yeah, I went to go eat with my boyfriend Pikachu, and now I'm just gonna go back to Don. It's all chill, you know.
Yeah, it's
Just
just a
spending,
date.
yeah, just casual date here, but no one even acknowledges it, which I think is perfect.
But I did think it was strange though. Like after that, like they all return their Pokemon to the Pokeballs, and they're like ready to leave, and Ash doesn't realize he doesn't have his own Turtwig.
Pikachu's the
And
one that points it out to him, right?
yeah, he does that face mimic thing where he's like pulling on his face and made it look like a Turtwig.
And then Brock's like, "Yeah, I saw Turtwig go for a stroll," and he's like, "Oh, all right, well, I'll go look for Turtwig." It's like, "Jeez, Ash, what? You don't even have that many Pokemon."
Yeah, how did you already just like lose track of your Pokemon?
It's an interesting one. He's just ready to go. You know, he
I
maybe just ate, needs to go to the bathroom. He's like, "All right, let's hit the road."
I do appreciate the fact that they give like their Pokemon time out of the Pokeballs, and
Mm-hmm.
like it seems like they get some freedom in the sense that you don't have to be right here next to me if Turtwig can just wander off and it's okay.
Right.
So I guess there's a part of that that's pretty cool, but the fact that he just didn't realize and was ready to leave, I was like, oh yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't recall my Turtwig because it's not out here. I need to go find it first.
Yeah, a little interesting that that everyone else notices except him in this case. So the next thing we see is just Turtwig running out of the bushes and biting on Ash's pant leg to tell him to come over here. And that's where they find this hippopotas just like on the edge of a cliff, like in a little outlet. Clearly haven't fallen down from somewhere and unable to go absolutely anywhere. So this is our introduction to Hippopotas. And at this point, they figure out that they need to rescue him. So they get to the other side of the cliff themselves, which I don't fully understand how they do, but it works somehow. Where they're now on top and are able to use a tree to tie Ash to a rope so he can kind of like rock climb down to where Hippopotas is. What do you think about this strategy on their part to rescuing it?
Overall, I think it's a pretty good strategy, but my first strategy was like if I were there, I would have just been like, let's knock this hippopotas off the ledge because it already fell 200 feet or however far it was and landed where it did without getting injured. So apparently it can fall another 200 feet and just be okay.
Yeah, the fact that it's like still a good distance from the top and the edge of the rock that it's on didn't immediately collapse is impressive in itself.
It just seems like it would have been a lot more injured from that fall to begin with.
Yeah, like it's kind of critical, and it's also like, this Hippopotas just really strong? Did something break its fall that we don't know of? But it's kind of just like a very convenient setup here to like show he's really trapped, and there's no way he's getting down from here on his
Yeah,
own.
there's no way you get yourself in that position, so there's no way
No.
you can get out of that position.
They tried explaining that later that I might have been trying to get fruit from a tree, and that's where it came down from because the tree was close to the edge. But I'm just like, maybe this could have replaced the cold open. Give us a little like crazy slapstick way of showing how Hippopotas got here, and that would have been a kind of fun intro.
Yeah, that would be a lot better.
Mm-hmm. A little context, just kind of giving us an understanding of how we got here would be fun. But Ash does climb down there with Pikachu, who persuades Hippopotas into not biting Ash anymore. And now, with the help of Brock and Dawn, they're able to pull them back up to the top and kind of help Hippopotas relax a little bit with a snack and get it to calm down. Now, at this point, they are being pretty friendly with it. Like Ash is able to calm it down with the help of Pikachu, and now it's on safe ground. They get a fruit from it from the tree that it was supposedly hungry for, and it's I think at one moment someone says, "Hey, it looks like Hippopotas wants to come with you," and it's immediately interrupted by Rhonda.
Yeah, I think
Rhonda
it's Rhonda.
Rhonda from Sinnoh Now, which is a recurring character that we've seen in the show, a news reporter slash anchor who is following this hippopotas and gives a whole backstory. But before we talk about that, what do you think about that suggestion of hippopotas joining Ash?
I thought that was a really good idea.
Yeah, I
I
was
was excited for it.
excited. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, sure. Give Ash this new Pokemon. Like, why not? It's cute. We don't know much about it, and it's not like a very common one that people might get. So I'm always interested in seeing how those kind of Pokemon interact and get shown off in the show.
You know, one thing that I was thinking about when Ash like just carried the hippopotas off the ledge and then Brock pulled them all up. I was like, I'm pretty sure hippopotas is a heavy Pokemon.
Yes.
So I looked it up just now and it's 109 pounds,
Yeah.
or 49.5 kilograms for you non-freedom unit folk. Yeah, I'm like, Ash is super strong, but Brock is also super strong. I'm
And Dawn
impressed.
does help him,
Oh, okay. But
but
still, that's very impressive.
yeah, you know what would have been nice if he had brought out Happini.
Oh, that would be cool.
Right? It's just like, yeah, like this makes sense. Like have her just pull them up and be like, Happini is the
Is she supposed
explanation
to be
for
like
doing this.
comically strong?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
It's never super explained, but it's just kind of a cute gimmick that she has. But the TV crew explains that there's a hippopotas migration happening right now, and this one got separated from the herd. So they decide to help this hippopotas get back, and Ash puts this 109 Pokemon pound Pokemon on its head and starts walking off until they immediately fall into a pitfall trap, which is a classic Team Rocket move. And of course, it's revealed that they are the ones who set this up and snatch up the hippopotas, which Jessie cannot pronounce. Like she tried several times during this episode. I don't think she ever says Hippopotas's name correctly.
And honestly, like that's the probably the highlighting factor of this episode for me that I thought was like great.
Just
Um,
Jessie's failure there.
yeah, I mean, I think it's just one of those Pokemon names that you look at and you're like trying to figure it out by yourself. And once someone says it the right way, like you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But just trying to read it blows your mind. And I've heard a lot of people pronounce it wrong. So just
Hmm.
like um I guess seeing them make fun of that fact that it's kind of a hard name to read is pretty funny to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad they acknowledge it because there's definitely moments where you're like, everyone in the show can just say this like correctly. Like, hold up, no education system is this good that everyone knows how to pronounce all these words.
Yeah, it's like if you don't have a Pokédex, you have no
Hmm.
idea how to say this thing's name.
Exactly. And Hippopotas, while all this is happening, lets out a yawn attack, which hits Meowth, and Ash is able to use Turtwig's Razor Leaf to cut down Hippopotas from the rope, and is freed from Team Rocket's clutches. As Ash catches it, it uses another yawn, which hits Brock and someone from the camera crew, which we'll get to later. But Jesse's pretty frustrated with this. Meowth isn't there to explain the fantasy of why they're going after this Pokemon. So James steps in and kind of provides his own improv fantasy of how Hippopotas can help the boss. And I thought these were pretty funny, actually. One of them includes Giovanni golfing and Hippopotas being hidden in the sand somewhere, uh, close to where the hole is, and being able to blow the ball close enough to make Giovanni's hit count for more points in golf, basically, or less points. And Jane just kind of improvises the whole thing, which I found pretty great.
Yeah, that was good. James also, I think, has a really good spot in this episode. Just in general,
Yep.
I think he did it really well. So it may have been. Oh wait, no. There's another point that comes later that was really good.
Yes. Yeah. We'll get to that for sure. I knew exactly
Yeah.
what we're talking about. And then they just hit the road with the camera crew lagging behind because their mic person got hit by the yawn as well and just passed out. And as they keep going along, Don comments on how heavy Hippopotas is, so they kind of recognize it. And Brock is offering to take over if Ash gets tired. But what happens instead is Brock passes out because if you know the move Yawn, that will actually take out opponents and put them to sleep after another turn. And in this case, it seemed to have a delayed effect on Brock as he just passes out in the middle of the road. And Dawn's actually the one who kind of explains that it was Yawn that hit him, and Brock and Ash is the one who's kind of confused at first, more that why did Brock just fall asleep?
Yeah, and I really liked the delayed action of Yon in the anime.
Hmm.
Just the way that it plays out, like you said in the video game, I think they incorporated it well by giving the characters some time to act a little bit before they fell asleep.
Exactly. Yeah, it kind of plays into how that mechanic works, which is pretty neat. And from here, Dawn spots Team Rocket flying overhead and decides that they need to hide, or else they'll come looking for them. So they jump into the bushes, but forget Brock. Like, they were just talking about him, and they completely forget that he's now asleep in the middle of the road.
Yeah, they just ditched him.
But luckily, his own Pokemon did not, as Krogan somehow understood what was going on, and they see immediately Krogan just dragging Brock's unconscious body behind it as it runs towards the bushes and hides the body successfully. And Don's like, "Wow, quick thinking, Krogan!" And Krogan just sitting there, taking in the moment.
Yeah, I do like Krogunk. Definitely grown on me. So I think Krogunk in general, like, is an okay Pokemon. I think the shiny version of it is great, like outstanding,
Mm,
fantastic. I love it. Um,
really?
oh
Okay.
yeah, just like normally as a Pokemon, I didn't really know a whole lot about it. So when it first introduced itself in the anime, I was like, okay, this is an interesting Pokemon. I didn't surprise,
Hmm.
I didn't expect Brock to get the Krogunk. I didn't really understand Krogunk's place, but the more it showed up, uh, I've come to really enjoy it in the anime.
Yeah, it's a definitely cool fan favorite, I'd say, that gets a lot of screen time and is just a fun addition to the group. Like it just adds another dynamic to Brock and his failed flirtations, which I think is is probably some of the most satisfying because you actually hear like his heartbreak as Kroga intervenes a lot of the time.
Yeah, I'm just like, come on, Krogunk, put a little more effort behind that poison jab.
Then we cut to later, which is like, okay, this is gonna be the recurring thing of this episode. We just cut to the future a lot, like an hour at a time sometimes, because at this point Brock is now awake again, and they reach a roadblock that is blocking off the path somehow, and as they're distracted by that, Hipp-o-sis again gets snatched up by Team Rocket, and it tries to run away with it, but Ash hangs onto the net, and the net breaks, which sends them flying into a river that was next to them because they're crossing a bridge now. During this, I think Dawn gets hit by a yawn somehow. It's like it's whatever. Like her moment does not last nearly as long as Brock's. But she like wakes up to see what's going on, sends out Weasel down to help Ash in the water, and Brock very quickly sends out Krogan to use Poison Sting on Team Rocket's balloon to send them blasting off. And Weasel just has a really cool moment as it kind of like pose dives into the water and just comes up to the rock that Ash is holding onto while saving Hipp-o-sis. And that just tells him, Weasel, I'm fine. Take Hipp-o-sis ashore. And he just grabs him, dives into the water, and then comes back up with Hipp-o-sis kind of holding on to Weasel's neck, which is an inflatable, like, mini raft, basically, and takes it back to shore with Ash following.
I liked the inner tube scene, like the inner tube around its neck. I really liked that part. But what confused me was, like you pointed out, when the Weasel grabbed the Hipp-o-sis and just dove into the water. It's like the whole point was to keep the Hipp-o-sis out of the water to the best of your ability, and you're just like completely dunking it, not just dragging it through the water, which would be totally okay. But like, nah, you are going 10 feet under.
Yeah, like chill, Weasel. Like, what are you doing? Like, he realizes later to just inflate the tube and float along, but it like just brought Hipp-o-sis face first into the water for some reason. So, Weasel's not the greatest of lifeguards I've seen.
In training.
Oh, in training. That explains it. Okay.
Yeah.
And Hipp-o-sis comes out seeming kind of sick, so they rush off to a Pokemon Center where it looks like it's doing fine. Nurse Joy says it just needs some rest, medicine, and time in the sand, which she somehow has. So good on her for, I guess, being ready for Hipp-o-sis or ground types. But she kind of hints that he could use more sand. So we get a montage of Ash and friends running out to a random place with sand and collecting dry sand that Staravia finds for them. And it's like a whole thing. Like, they're running, and Don's like, slow down. And he's like, no, you slow down. And he drops his bag of sand, and it comes out. But they help him put the sand back in, and then they keep running back to the Pokemon Center, all with this, like, epic music happening in the background.
I think that was just like a lot of filler. I didn't think that was super necessary.
Yeah, it's like,
especially the part with him tripping and stuff. Like, that little conflict didn't add anything to the episode.
No. It maybe just showed, like, hey, Ash, you can slow down, but, like, it's not super necessary whatsoever. I guess they just really wanted to animate this, like, epic scene of Ash going along. And we'll get to maybe why it frustrates me even more as we get closer to the end here. But he is able to bring the sand back to the Pokemon Center, and Hipp-o-sis is grateful for it as it kind of speeds up its recovery. And they then leave the Pokemon Center off to search for the herd again. And on their way out, they find a group of interestingly dressed merchants, I guess, is how you would put it. Which is, of course, none other than Team Rocket in disguise. And as they're offering to sell them sand, but actually give it away for free because, of course, they're the lucky winners. Hipp-o-sis releases a yawn on Jesse, and that kind of blows the cover of what's going on, as in they're in the middle of trying to kidnap Hipp-o-sis. And it just scurries back over to Ash, which I found really funny.
Yeah, the bag didn't really work out too well.
Yeah, it was not the most solid of plans. And with their cover blown, they go right into the motto, and I think this is the funnier part that you were talking about earlier.
Yes, definitely.
Because they start going into the motto, and Jesse falls asleep halfway through thanks to yawn, and James just kind of puppets her body through the second half of her lines, which was just hilarious to
Yeah, and
watch.
uses like a higher pitched voice. Like it was good.
Yeah,
It's like,
he
man, James, you're the real main character of the show.
he committed himself. This is his time to shine here. um, so James is already capable of showing that he's filled in for Meowth and his boss fantasies, and now he's filling in for Jesse and the motto. He's got this. He's carrying the team on his back this episode.
It definitely is.
And here Ash just sends out Brock to battle Cacnea, and just can I say he just destroys James in this battle.
Yeah. I don't know. These battles just seemed like super short.
Yeah. This one to me felt especially short because he like just sends out Turtwig and immediately back to back like sends out attacks, and then is ready to finish off with Thunderbolt like before they can even do anything.
Yeah. Well, Cacnea did also grab onto James, I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah, that's fair. It bought him a little time.
He lost a turn.
It set him back enough. That's fair. Yeah, I just thought that was funny because it seems like it shows how maybe Jesse is more of the aggressive battler in this situation, and like the team dynamic that they have. I mean, but finally, for like the third time this episode, we blast off Team Rocket, and they get to the desert finally, where they see some Hipp-o-sis footprints, but no signs of Hipp-o-sis themselves, aside from the sand dunes. But then Hipp-o-sis cries out for its friends, and we see a lot of heads just cutely popping out of the sand, which shows that its friends are all here and it's reunited with its herd. As they say goodbye, Ash tosses him a fruit for the last time, and Hipp-o-sis replies by sending out another yawn, which puts Ash and Pikachu to sleep. And the episode wraps up with Ash being carried by Brock as they head back to Hearthome, and Dawn carrying Pikachu as they continue on to their next gym battle and contest. So, like, as you can probably tell, there's a lot and yet nothing that really happens this episode.
Yeah. And it was very difficult for me to like think about this episode and how I felt about it, because overall I felt like the storyline was just not great, but there were some really good moments in the middle of it that I like enjoyed. And so it's like hard for me to think about the episode and how I would like emotionally respond to it, you know?
Yeah, the gags were pretty strong, but at some points it just like felt like they really wanted this to take a while. Specifically, the journey of Ash reuniting Hipp-o-sis. Like, they really felt like they were trying to make it last as long as possible. Like, they had this random roadblock for some reason, the side venture with the Pokemon Center, and I'm just like, do you want us to keep Hipp-o-sis? Like, do you want them to give up? Like, what's going on here?
To me, this it would have like I don't know how to word it. I guess like the audience would have benefited more if Ash kept the Hippopotas,
Yeah.
because I felt like there was a lot of conflict, like individual conflicts. Like Team Rocket tried to capture it what 3 or 4 times in this one
Mm-hmm.
episode, and so it's like it shows Ash's perseverance to keeping it safe. And so to me, it would have been a good ending to see when Ash like threw him the fruit, then the
Mm,
Hippopotas like ran back to Ash and decided to
yeah.
stay with him. Then I feel like the viewers would have been rewarded for watching this long episode.
Yeah, it would have been way more satisfying because like that just felt the direction like that they were going in. Especially after the whole sequence of them trying to find the sand, like it shows him really going out of his way for this hippopotas, and for it to just kind of like say thank you and goodbye is kind of inconclusive.
It just confuses me on like what is the point of like what's Ash's goal? I know he wants to be a Pokemon master, whatever that means, but it's like how does he decide which Pokemon he wants to catch and which ones he doesn't?
Yeah.
Because it's not always like a Pokemon's like, oh, I want to be your friend now, and then he takes him. Sometimes he's like,
Hmm.
oh, there's a Pokemon, I want to catch it. It's like, well,
Right.
why didn't you do that with this Hippopotas?
Yeah, like
Like
this
this would
one,
be perfect for your team.
like we even see it use Sand Tomb on Team
Yeah.
Rocket, and Sand Attack, I think, at some point. So I'm like, it can clearly battle and kind of fend for itself at least. Wouldn't Ash want that on his team? Maybe. So I don't know. This is just one of the mysteries. It
This
felt. I don't. I don't know how to feel about it either.
so does he not like overcatch Pokemon anymore? Because I know in like season 1, he had multiple Pokemon like with Professor Oak that he could like swap out at any time. He'd call them up and then they'd like do their little transfer. Um,
Yes.
so I'm wondering if like in the seasons I didn't watch, if he still has like a reserve of Pokemon, or if he just like gets a team of 6 and doesn't catch any more.
So historically, he does continue that trend. In Johto, he catches a Heracross that ends up keeping with the professor for a long time because his team ends up being like the starters Noctowl, Pikachu, and Phanpy by the end. And in Hoenn, he doesn't overcatch actually. Uh he ends up leaving two of his Pokemon in Professor Oak's lab as he goes on the Battle Frontier arc, and then catches Apom, but that's it. In this season, we will see him overcatch.
Okay, well that's good.
Yeah,
I just
so
don't
we'll get
understand
there.
like why they choose to allow him to catch some Pokemon and
Hmm.
why they set it up perfectly for him to like have this best friend new Pokemon and then oh we'll never see you again.
Yeah, like it's even suggested, and then it just turns into character of the week. It just feels really odd. So maybe at some point they planned to have him on the team, but they're like, no, 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 Hippopotas isn't as marketable as Turtwig. We need to keep that.
I don't know. It's kind of like derpy cute.
Yeah, that's fair. Maybe I'll see a resurgence in the newest anime or the games coming out.
I think it was in the Pokemon Center when it was in that like new sand. Its eyes
Hmm.
were closed, but like the black dots on them were like the little half ovals. I know it just looked
Mm.
super cute. And I never really thought about this Pokemon as being like a cute Pokemon, but I
Yeah.
feel like the way that it was portrayed in the anime,
When it's happy,
it
it looks
definitely
really
did.
nice for sure.
Yeah,
But sometimes the sprite doesn't even show it's smiling, so it's kind of hard to tell.
that's true.
But speaking of cute Pokemon, oh, before we go, actually, darn it, I almost had a good transition.
Oh no,
What would you rate episode 44, Man's
gosh.
Hipp-o-sis?
I don't know, maybe like a 6. Like I enjoyed a lot
Yeah.
of the James comedy. Um I enjoyed some of the interactions like with Hippopotas,
Mm-hmm.
but just overall the story was not super great and there was like no reward at the end, so
Mm-hmm.
it's like a 5 or a 6.
This is exactly how I put it. A 6 as well. It just doesn't go anywhere. It's like it could. It just doesn't decide on that. But we'll see how that holds up against this episode, which came right after episode 45, Ill Will Hunting.
Do you get that reference or are you too young?
Goodwill Hunting?
Oh, okay, good.
Okay. I know that name and I have no idea what that means.
Oh, you've never seen that movie?
Near Mount Coronet, Ash and his friends come across Pokemon Hunter J, goons who are trying to snatch a group of wild Shieldon. Ash is about to come to the rescue, but his old friend and rival Gary gets there first with his Electivire. What is Goodwill Hunting for the viewers at home?
Goodwill Hunting is a movie with oh gosh, I'm horrible with actors and actresses.
Will
Some like
Smith,
hot, no, some like hot popular guy. Um,
Justin Bieber.
no, this it's older. And oh my gosh, I told you I'm horrible with names.
You're the one who was telling me that I don't know, and now you do
I
this.
I know Robin Williams. Robin
Oh,
Williams
okay.
was in it. He was like a therapist, and
Oh,
there was yeah. It's a very
there's no
interesting movie.
hunting?
No, I don't. I'm not 100%
What?
sure on the name of um said
This is
movie,
clickbait.
but yeah, definitely clickbait. But the main character, uh, whatever that hot dude's name is, that I don't know. I don't remember who it was, but he was like a janitor for a college, and then he was like
Hmm.
he would like solve like these difficult math equations
Oh,
after like everybody left. Like they had these math equations stuck on the board and no one could solve them, like the students. And then he would just be like cleaning up the room and he'd look over at it and then he'd start like messing around with it and he would be able to figure out those equations. Anyway, so very
what?
intelligent. Yeah, a very intelligent guy that wasn't like applying himself. And then it goes
Interesting.
into like a lot of his like upbringing and that's where like Robin Williams comes in as the therapist. Uh, but it's a good movie. You should check it out.
Okay. Does it
Highly
have
recommend.
anything to do with this episode?
No, I think it just has the I think the pun is just ill
The
will
title.
hunting. So like good being ill like is the opposite.
Uh-huh.
Will instead of like the name, it's like the want to do something or whatever. So bad intentions.
Okay.
And then I guess just because it's Hunter J, I don't know.
Yeah, I'll give it that. I think Greg would scream, but like
Oh, he absolutely would.
oh man. I'll watch it for homework. We'll get
Yeah,
there.
good movie. Not related at all, but good movie.
What about this episode? Would you think that this is a good episode from its intro, cold open, any of that? How does it compare to Goodwill Hunting, in your opinion?
It's been a while since I actually watched Good Will Hunting, so I can't really compare like scene by scene.
Oh,
But
okay,
I
fair.
will say, as someone who only watched Gen 1, that I was super excited to see Gary.
Really? Okay.
Yes. I know. I don't know if we talked about this on a podcast or off a podcast before, but I remember you telling me that Gary beat Ash at the end of the Battle Frontier with the Electivire, and that kind of like
Yes.
prompted him to go to Sinnoh. And so when I saw the Electivire and Gary, like I was
Hmm.
like taken aback for a second, and I was like, "Oh yeah, Will told me he already had that, so that's pretty cool."
That's awesome. Yeah, I think we discussed it, and it's also the zero episode of this podcast. So if anyone wants to listen in more detail of the last time Ash and Gary met, feel free to check that out. But I'm glad that you remembered that when you saw it, kind of pieced it together. Were you like expecting Gary all here in Sinnoh? I don't even know if we discussed it that much that he would be coming back.
No, I didn't. I didn't have any idea that he would show up in this anime. Like maybe like at the end during some big fight, or during the
Mm-hmm.
tournament or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
no, I didn't just expect him to casually be in an episode. So that was really cool.
Totally. Yeah, I was also like, oh, that's awesome. And he's here as part of a like research that he's doing that's trying to protect the Shieldon that are being that are very rare, as Brock points out in the beginning of this episode to Dawn. And now we see that they're rare enough for Hunter J to come in and try to steal from their natural habitat, basically. What did you think about Shieldon just kind of casually being in this forest?
Yeah, it looked lost.
Yeah, it was
Um,
so scared and like kind of shaking at the beginning.
So my only like real experience with Shieldon would be from Pokemon Go. But I know
Okay.
in Pokemon Go it's a pretty rare spawn. So like when you see one, you typically get excited. You're like, oh, that's cool. It's a Shieldon. Same with like Cranidos. Those two Pokemon, you're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, that's pretty cool. Like those don't spawn too often. Um,
Right.
Actually, I think
And do you,
Cranidos is the evolved form, but whatever.
oh no, you're good. It's Red Pardos is the evolved form.
Oh, it is. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was like exciting to see those two in the beginning, and I was like, oh, well, this is pretty rare, and they pointed that out too. I was like, oh, so it must be a theme that it actually is a pretty rare Pokemon. Might be like a 1% spawn. Who knows?
Well, yeah, I'm glad that came up as a thought because neither of those Pokemon appear naturally in Sinnoh.
Oh,
You actually have to resurrect their fossils in order
hmm.
to obtain them. Cranidos being exclusive to Diamond and Shieldon being exclusive to Pearl.
Oh, interesting. I feel like
Yeah.
they showed that well with the Cranidos because it's very like linked to the fossil
Mm-hmm.
episodes. But with this one, yeah, there really wasn't much of a mention of fossils or anything.
No. Yeah, it's like, wait, so there's just wild Shieldon, apparently? Like, did they survive the Jurassic period? Like, did they escape from the Orberd Museum again or something? But yeah, it's just kind of like this area just has Shieldon, and apparently everyone knows that they are very rare. But we don't know how they're even alive, so I guess that's part of the mystery. um, and then Hunter J's goons come out of nowhere again to try to steal it. Pikachu gets slapped by a Golbat's wing attack, uh, which is like, geez, okay. And then Electivire is able to start fighting them off a bit. And Ash wants to keep battling, but Gary's like, no, we have to get going. So he sends out an Umbreon to go and um, fight the Golbat using Sand Attack at first, and then running over to a tree to lure out its Air Cutter attack. As it dodges out of Golbat's attack, that's where we see Beedrill come out and start attacking the goons. A lot of attacking going on here. Gary calls back Umbreon, and then everyone runs away as Electivire is just holding all the shield on in its
Yeah.
arms.
Was that when he just like grabbed 4 of them and just started
Yes.
walking away with them? Yeah, that was good.
Yeah. It's just great. Like, yeah, okay, that's fair. I would like to do something.
It had like
And as
big nanny vibes, you know?
definitely.
Oh, you know what? Big Hero 6.
Oh, yeah. As the robot.
Yeah, just
Did see
grabbing all
that.
of them and walking away.
And Ash is like, what's going on? And Gary's like, no time to explain. We have to get out of here. And as they're running away, Dawn actually asks Brock, who's Gary? Like, what's happening? And Brock says, oh, he's also from Palatown and he knows Ash. That's kind of all we get there.
And he's Oak's grandson. And then she's like,
I
"Oh, do
think
you know poetry?"
yes, he mentions that when they get to a safe clearing and
Oh,
he
okay.
starts like trying to explain that he does research and she's like, "Whoa, you're doing research? Like, who is this kid? Like, why is he an intern already?" And I feel like Brock wants to say nepotism, duh. But he's like, no, he's Oak's grandson. And it's like, wow, that explains it. Because then he does that thing where he makes, or no, she's like, can you, so do you like do Pokemon poetry also? And Gary's just like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I think it was like he was like really confused, like, "What? No." And then it
Mm,
just like switch scenes
Yeah,
or
then we
something
just
like that. It was just
we
like
cut
completely
away.
different conversation after that.
Yeah, we cut back to the goons actually, and they're like reporting to Jay that they found Shieldon, but then they also say we also lost Shieldon, as she gets really mad at them and tells them to go find it, and they're like, "Yes, we will. Don't worry." And then Gary explains the whole thing, how this is supposed to be a nature preserve that they're trying to work on, to save Shieldon in this area, but then Hunter Jay has been looking for them, so he is trying to meet with Professor Rowan, which he already was going to do apparently, and then jumps on the best connected Zoom call I've ever seen from the middle of a forest as he talks with Professor Rowan over video call as he is in his Jeep being driven towards the rendezvous point. So, this is where I draw the line for suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, this isn't 2021 when this episode was made.
Yeah, 2007, this kind of Skype, I'm not buying it.
Yeah, that stuff didn't even exist back then.
No, I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure we had Skype and
Uh,
webcams and stuff, but not
I
great.
think the
Not like
DSi
that.
had video calling actually.
Really? That's really
Maybe.
weird. I didn't ever have a DSi.
I don't know.
That's
Okay.
very strange to think that Nintendo would do a feature like that.
Well, they had the built-in camera, so they had to do something with it. Like that was the reason they sold it. So maybe. But then they start discussing strategies on how to get to the rendezvous point. Ash wants to be a bit more aggressive and battle the goons, but Gary's like, no, we have to keep everyone together. And this kind of becomes the tension throughout the whole episode. What do you think about this like conflict, quote unquote, that they have in how they rescue all these Shieldon?
I'm glad you asked because I have a lot of thoughts about this situation. Um,
Mm.
it's very weird to me, but I enjoyed seeing how mature Gary was in the situation. I feel
Mm.
like Gary's character acted more like an adult would,
Mm-hmm.
and Ash's acted clearly like a child. And so to me, it just seems like Gary has had the last 3 seasons of experience in the Pokemon world with some really cool Pokemon, which we haven't brought up one of them yet. Um, and it seems like he keeps them and raises them over time instead of starting off with a brand new batch every new region he goes to. But along with that, he keeps like his emotional maturity, and becomes like level headed because I feel like he was really cocky in
Mm.
season one,
Mm-hmm.
and he's not that character anymore, at least in this episode. So what's Ash doing wrong?
That's a good question, but also really interesting observation on what Gary's been up to. Because do you remember what happens after they battle in Johto?
No, I don't remember Johto. I watched like the first probably 5 episodes of Johto.
Got it. Okay. Well, might shock you, but at the end of that arc, as they're discussing what their plans are going to be moving forward, Gary announces that he's going to quit being a trainer and become a Pokemon professor like his grandfather.
Oh, cool. I like
S-
that.
Yeah, so he actually doesn't, as far as I know, go to Hoenn as a trainer. It's from that point onward that we just don't really see him for a long time as he becomes a professor and researcher. So he does have that mature turn at the end there that we see. Um, Partly prompted, presumably, by Ash beating him in the Johto League. And
Spoilers.
yes, sorry, 2002 people, if you're listening to this through the time travel technology that you have. But yeah, that's the end there of the Johto season, at least for Gary. I liked Gary's maturity, but I did feel like Ash's own growth was being downplayed a lot. Like,
I think a lot of times Ash doesn't really show much growth in general. I feel like he just shows that he cares a lot,
Mm,
and he sometimes does things without thinking or recklessly,
mm-hmm.
and without like a strategy to get out of the situation because he cares too much.
I guess, but like here there was little moments where it seems like Gary didn't explain the full thing until later in terms of just like context or the situation at hand. And I think if he had told Ash and some of that stuff up front, he would have been a little more on board and maybe helped create a more refined approach to their plan. Because what they end up deciding is like we can't fight at all. We need to go meet Rowan, but we're surrounded by all these goons in different locations, and we have to go through this really steep like terrain in order to get there. Like I felt like if they had put more time into it, they could have come up with a better plan that involved distracting the all the goons by having like Ash battle them, and giving them more of a chance to get away, which we end up seeing later on. But the plan kind of fails because it's very much a last ditch effort on their part.
Yeah, well, it fails because the Shieldon like has the rock fall out from under him,
Hmm.
and then it slides like down the side of the mountain or the
Yeah.
hill or whatever.
So let's just cut to that. I think because they decide that they need to go and meet with Professor Rowan and Officer Jenny. So they try to go across like we. This is the cold open from the episode where they're trying to like shimmy their way across this thin cliff, which is a miracle that no one died there. Shieldon actually kind of falls off for a moment, but because they're tied to ropes, everyone is kind of able to bring them back up to the edge and carry onward. So kind of clickbaity opening or cold open, if I do say so. And as they get to the end, Gary notices that one of the Shieldon's really tired. But in that moment, we see Sailor Man's come out of nowhere and land in front of Ash and his friends. Because Hunter J was able to piece together that they're trying to meet with this other vehicle that they saw on their radar, which is Rowan and Jenny. Were you expecting Hunter J to catch up to them like this?
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen her before. I know. Again, I can't tell. Is Hunter J she her?
Yes.
But they call her sir. I'm so confused.
Look, if you have someone above you with a arm cannon that can turn you to stone, you're calling them whatever they want.
I agree. I agree. I mean, in general, I do believe it's good to, you know, call people off of what they prefer their pronouns to be. But I'm just very confused on like what the writers were intending.
Oh, okay. In what sense?
Maybe, well, just because like it's a female character, but then it's then they're like referred to as sir, and so maybe that's like a translation thing. Maybe there's like one term that would be like ma'am, sir, or all encompassing in Japanese, but it doesn't translate that way in English. Like maybe in English it splits up into, you know, the two terms sir and ma'am. Um, Maybe that's just how they thought like military operates, or maybe that sounds more professional and more bounty huntery. I don't know. I just don't understand it.
Yeah, I never put a lot of time into it, but it could be something with the translation and localization for sure. Um, but I guess that atmosphere of being a group of mercenaries, basically, I just kind of bought into that, especially seeing how they're all dressed and they have like strict communications and a lot of just warfare aesthetic. I kind of just immediately was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Even though she is
Okay.
portrayed as a woman, as
Yeah,
far as
and
we
I
know.
think like at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter.
Hmm.
It's not a big deal. It doesn't matter for the episode and stuff. It just it was just very strange for me because I felt like the character was female, and then I hear that and I'm like, wait, was I just like portraying that character to be female, or did they actually say it was
Mm,
a female? Like, was that something on me? Was that something the episode told me? I don't know. It was interesting. It made me think about all
yeah,
that.
no, definitely. And Jay shows that she's very capable of any title you give her, as she sends out her Drapion to battle with Pikachu, and has a Hyper Beam Fire on Ash and crew, which forces Gary to send out his starter Pokemon, the Blastoise, to battle alongside Pikachu using Hydro Cannon and a bunch of other moves, in order to cover for them as Dawn, Brock, and the Shieldon all sneak away up the side of a road, over toward where Rowan and Officer Jenny are. And there's a cool little moment here where Dawn kind of wants to help Gary and crew, but Brock kind of holds on to her and says, "Hey, our job is to keep the Shieldon safe, right?" And she agrees to that, and then um, commits to helping the Shieldon get to where they need to be. Did that moment stick out for you at all?
Yeah, I just felt like uh, it's very interesting how they put these Pokemon that they've never met before, like
Mm.
way before themselves. It's not just like doing them a favor. It's like we're just gonna put ourselves and our own Pokemon at risk to try to save you guys. Which I mean is really cool, but that takes a lot of guts.
Yeah, no,
And especially
definitely.
for like people that aren't trained for those types of situations, to
Mm-hmm.
think like level-headedly, it makes total sense for Dawn to be like, no, I want to go help because that would give them the best chances of winning the battle versus
Right.
like the big mission is saving the Shieldon, making sure that they get their sanctuary.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Right. I kind of like it because it shows Dawn maybe mature a little bit here, and kind of shows Brock's understanding of how dangerous the situation is as well. But like they don't do a lot themselves in guiding the shield on up the side of the road, which I was like, maybe if that had been a bit more explicit in how they're helping them, especially because of what happens, I would have gotten more satisfaction from it. Because what does happen is that one of the tired Shieldon slips and falls down right into the middle of the battle, and that's where Hunter J is able to capture it using her petrification beam, and then make cover as she runs away with the Shieldon back to the ship.
Turns that Shieldon into chocolate.
Oh man!
That's something that stuck out to me in the cold open. I was like, oh, we're getting chocolate Pokemon again.
Wow! Oh man! You must be one of these customers that she has.
Hey, I'll eat a chocolate covered Pokemon.
Of
As long as it's
course.
not like a Magikarp. That would hurt.
What?
Yeah, you can't
Oh,
bite into a Magikarp.
I mean, yeah, but like in the anime, you actually see like the mini Magikarp that are kind of like chocolate or cookie-esque. They have those in Japan. They're really good. I can't remember what they are, but they have like a certain filling usually, which is chocolate or like banana. But anyway, here they are all frustrated to hear that Jay was able to make off with one of the shields on, and Ash is very hard on himself because he thinks that it's his fault. But it's actually Gary who admits fault in the situation because he overestimated the stamina of the Shieldon in being able to get this far, as they went alongside the cliff and then had to climb up this other small cliff to get to Rowan and Jenny.
That was just like another sign of like maturity. I think for both of them, really, like, man, I screwed up. And it was like, oh, no, I screwed up. I thought maybe they
Mm-hmm.
were going to go back and forth for like 5 minutes saying who screwed up worse. And each of them thought it was their own fault. But
Right.
I think they just both realized maybe they could have worked better together, or who knows,
Yeah.
maybe they could have talked about the situation a little more and maybe seen it from more points of view and prevented what
Mm-hmm.
happened.
Yeah, like a little more emphasis on that part would have been nice. But here instead, we cut to Jay getting in the vehicle and Ash and Gary pulling the same trick that Ash pulled last time, which is hide in the underside of their vehicles as they go back into the big hovercraft thing. And I'm like, did you guys not do a security check the last time this happened?
Yeah. Yeah, that security policy should have been updated at least.
Yeah, or like give me a
Like scan all
sensor.
vehicles before going on the big ship.
Right? Like something underneath to scan or something.
Just put mirrors on the ground.
No, there we go. Yeah, there's ways you can do that without needing a ton of technology. Um, and while Jay is waiting for the client to show up, that we saw them call earlier in this episode to get the shield on, Ash and Gary just start wrecking house inside of the ship. That's enough to distract them and scare off the client, who announces from the helicopter that is like, our deal is off. I see that Officer Jenny is on her way. So bye. he just ends the contract right there. And
So yeah,
Jay's
I'm not getting
furious.
arrested. See ya.
Yeah. And she's like, what? How dare you? And it's great. She's a shrewd businesswoman, and she does not like when she gets played like this. So, and all of this, she like Ash is able to recover Shieldon and free it from its stasis. And Jade tells her subjects or her goons like, "No, we're done here. Let's just take off and leave the shield on." And Ash still wants to fight. But at that point, I think Gary's just like, no, it's fine. Like, we have Shieldon back. Just leave him alone. He's like,
Yeah.
we don't want to deal with this.
Well, and I understand Ash's point of view for this one. Just because this is the second run in with Jay.
Yes.
And I believe at the beginning of it, he said, the beginning of like this episode with Jay, he said that he wasn't going to let her get away again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she definitely needs to be stopped. She needs to pay for what she's done, but she needs to be stopped for her future actions as well.
Right. He has a
So I
strong
get
sense
that.
of justice going
For
in.
sure.
On the more pragmatic side, they're like, hey, Shieldon's safe, and we don't have enough people here to try and stop Jay anyway, so kind of cut your losses at this point. Officer Jenny finally shows up, and they reunite the Shieldon in a very cute way. And she says that she'll launch a full investigation into Hunter J, which I was like, isn't there one already? Isn't that like why the other Officer Jenny showed up last time?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Right? Okay. That's what I remembered as well. So maybe they're like, we need a new investigation. Or Hunter J actually has some people on the inside that are able to kind of close her case quietly.
Yeah, maybe that, or I think it's maybe a little more likely that the Officer Jennies of the different cities haven't been communicating about the Hunter J situation. And so
Maybe,
maybe
yeah.
like the last city had its own case open for Hunter J, and now this one's like, oh, we need to open a case. And then maybe it's like, oh, we need to go more than just attack her with officers. We need to get a whole damn army. Well, I don't know if I should say that. You can cut that out. A whole
Like
army.
That's fine. They I mean, like, it kind of feels like they're putting in a support ticket, though. They're like, yeah, we'll deal with it. like what? Like, I bring in like the international police for this or something. Like, come on, give me a little more follow through than another investigation opening up.
Yeah, I could see your point for sure.
But from here, Gary thanks Ash for his help, reminding them that they're friends to the end, which Dawn remarks immediately that it's a poem, and she's super excited about this.
Yeah. Also, Gary told Professor Rowan that it was Ash that saved the day because
Mm-hmm.
Professor Rowan was like
Thanks.
congratulating Gary and thanking Gary and everything. And Gary's like,
Mm-hmm.
actually, it was all Ash. And it's like, well, it was really both of them, but it was cool to be like to see
Yeah,
Gary be like, oh, I don't need the glory. I can recognize Ash in this situation.
exactly. He's like, I have my government funding for my research. Give Ash some credit.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they depart off on their way to Hearthome City. Yeah, I guess to start, how would you compare this episode to the last one that Hunter J was in?
Oh, the last episode Hunter J was in. That's a good question. Um, I think I like this one better. I like the characters better.
Mm-hmm.
Can't remember what her name was. Cheryl?
Jeez, oh man, do you remember like the owner of the Gardevoir?
Yeah, I don't know. Was that Cheryl?
I no. Cheryl's the
Cheryl's someone
forest.
else. Oh,
Yeah,
okay, that's right.
but like
Um,
I don't even remember her name
yeah,
honestly.
I was gonna say it wasn't Gardenia because she's the grass gym leader. Um, but yeah, whatever that person's name was, like that character was just uh, temporary, I guess. You know, just like
Def-
there for an episode.
Mhm. Right, is a
Um,
character of the day for sure.
yeah, and so I think I liked seeing Gary come back
Oh, it was
better for that
Melody.
situation. Oh, Melody, got it. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was. I think it was better to have a character that actually like meant something to the audience to be
right.
involved.
Yeah, that's probably my main plus for this episode as well is that like that old episode had this character that we don't know literally anything about. Like she has a Gardevoir and a Curlia, and that's it. It was also kind of odd that they were only able to figure out what was going on and intercept Jay by having her use Curly as a future sight.
Yeah,
I would just like, oh, like she's really just here as a plot device. But here in this episode, on the contrary, they're very much like everyone's established, no one's new here, except the Shieldon, and we get to see them in a very different situation than we've ever seen before. Like Gary's almost never been involved with what Team Rocket does, even so. And being in this very high stakes environment with some characters that we're pretty familiar with, even though we haven't seen in a while, is kind of cool and adds an interesting dynamic. And with that in mind, what do you think you would rate this episode of the anime? 45, Ill Will Hunting.
I liked it quite a bit. I'd say like a 8.5.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. So back to that last Hunter J episode, I was thinking about it a little more just now. It seems like that was like a capture and then a break in and then an escape plan.
Hmm.
Whereas like this time, yeah, there was some of that, but it seemed more like Hunter J was kind of like on the defensive side of things.
Oh, how so?
Just because like they were in control of the Pokemon most of the time, like the Shieldon for most
Hmm.
of the episode, whereas like in the last Hunter J episode, she had Meowth and I want to say Pikachu very early on,
Mm-hmm.
and so it was like we have to get onto their spaceship flying through the air and do like a jailbreak that way.
Hmm.
Whereas this time it was like we're getting into the ship to like do a distraction. Um, but for most of the episode, they were in control of the Shieldon, and they
Right.
were like trying to keep that away from Hunter J.
Yeah, that's a good point. It was very much in this case that they were the prey,
Yes.
and Hunter J was effectively the predator. Very soothing of her title. I kind of enjoyed how Ash was able to use his Pokemon in the first one a bit more, though. Uh, like on the ship, Apom and Turtwig were a help, and he just sends. Oh, actually, in both cases for these episodes, he sends Staravia out to go and um tell everyone where they are.
Oh, that's true. I did actually like that scene. I forgot about it, but I like how they were both underneath the truck
Hmm.
thing, and he brings it out of the Pokeball like underneath the truck and like in the shadows, and is like, "All right, go sneak out and let them know where we
Yes.
are." And
And
I did like that. That was pretty cool.
did you notice how Storavia flew away?
Uh, it seemed like it stayed like close to the ground until it got into
Yes.
the bushes.
Yeah, yeah. It just like beeline for the bushes. It just glides silently, and I thought that was hilarious. I'm like, even Staravia knows that this is a stealth mission.
Yeah, yeah, that was good. I like that scene. You know, there was one thing about these two episodes, episode 44 and 45,
Hmm.
that just left me scratching my head. Um,
What would that be?
Obviously, it's logical. My thought process is logical, and it would take a lot away from the two episodes if they were to have done it this way. But it just blows my mind why they don't just be like, "Oh, we're gonna put these Pokemon,
Hmm.
Hipp-o-sis or the Shieldon, into Pokeballs,
Yeah.
get them to where they need to be, and then release them." You know, they've already talked
Hmm.
about releasing Pokemon in this season, even. So
Yeah.
you know that's a thing. But it's just like it doesn't even cross your mind.
Totally. I also had that thought, and I'm trying to figure out the best way that the anime might explain it in the world that we know. And my guess is that they don't want to have the Pokemon form a bond with a human that way, and then have to try to release it back into the wild.
Yeah, but
Because there's some judgment, I think, on Ash's part and everyone else when Paul just releases Pokemon. And I wonder if that's a concern for maybe the Pokemon's mental health. That I'm like, what? I just got turned into like data and then let out. Like, what happened?
that's true.
So it could be that kind of nature connection that they're like, I don't want to taint this. But it does seem for practicality reasons and the fact like the alternative fate is for these Pokemon being sent into a trophy collection for a random buyer kind of evens out the scales here for what's a moral choice.
Yeah. And then the other thing about this episode was when Ash released it from the chocolate stasis, the
Yes.
Shieldon like ran into his arms and like hugged him. And it's
Yeah.
another one of those like moments that is like, oh, are you trying to tell us that Ash is gonna get this Pokemon?
Mhm.
And so like for the next minute or two, I'm thinking like, oh, this would be really cool to see
Yeah.
Shieldon and I don't know how to say the other one, is it Bastodon or something? Um,
Bastiodon, I think.
yeah, and so I don't really know much about those Pokemon, but they're pretty cool. I think that would
Mhm.
be been a good addition to his team as well. Like, so that's like two
Yeah.
episodes in a row that I'm like, here's a cool Pokemon that
Mhm.
I don't really know a whole lot about that Ash could add onto his team, and it would be really awesome. And then he doesn't.
You know, I think it might. Okay, so yes, that is interesting that both these episodes, you're like, this Pokemon, is it gonna join the team? Like, it really seems like it. And it ends up not. I wonder if this is a bias towards Pokemon that are bipedal.
Hmm.
Because I've noticed this bias myself when choosing starters, when choosing like just my general favorite Pokemon, that I try to go for something that can stand on two legs. And I wonder if that's influenced by the anime.
Interesting. Because they tend to give those Pokemon more attention.
Yeah, they're more humanized in a way. They can like do things that are a level above what a dog or a cat or like some other pet might do that doesn't have that ability to use its hands. And it seems more special in that way.
Hmm.
So
True.
maybe,
Having Pikachu carry a little bottle of ketchup has
yeah,
definitely sold it.
a lot
Sold
of
people on Pikachu.
cuteness that you can do with it. Exactly, yeah. So maybe that's food for thought that I'll have to think about as we continue onward. But I wonder what you guys at home think, maybe in the comments. Like, do you have any special unconscious or conscious bias towards Pokemon that look a certain way, that can walk and talk, maybe like humans do? Because I think that's very interesting in terms of what people see in Pokemon and how they connect to them. Do you notice
Um,
that at all with some of the Pokemon that you like?
yeah, I was thinking about that. So I'd say like Cyndaquil is my favorite Pokemon, which to me is like a four-legged one. I don't know. To me, it's not really
Mm,
bipedal. I don't know. Even though I don't think it walks around on four, but it's like hunched over, like it
yes.
would walk on four. But then of course I like Jinx, which is probably the most human-like Pokemon besides Mr. Mime.
No, man.
Um,
Disturbingly so.
yes. And then I'm trying to look back. Here, I'm looking back at my plushies right now, see which ones.
Are you saying we need to make this a video podcast so we can see all your plushies?
Oh man, then I have to put my makeup on.
Uh, I think it's
I like
worth it.
Lapras a lot. I like
Okay.
Porygon.
Yeah,
I feel like those are
same,
okay.
same,
Um,
same. But the thing is with those two, I wouldn't keep them as or treat them as pets because Lapras is too big and Porygon's too robotic, or at least non-organic.
yeah, Lapras is more of like a mode of transportation.
Mm-hmm.
Score Bunny, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I think I probably do have a bias towards bipedal Pokemon, but I try not to.
Mm-hmm.
I think they just make bipedal Pokemon cute.
Yeah, they do. I don't know what it is, but I think it's interesting to think about. If anyone wants to give it some thought and get back to us, feel free to do that in the comments. But I don't think I mentioned my rating for this episode. I would probably give it a 7. Like, it's an uneven 7 because it felt weirdly rushed in the beginning and middle, and the ending way how like Gary and Ash are just attacking the ship felt like a kind of weak climax to everything that was going on in terms of trying to rescue the Shieldon. Like it was like kind of thought through. There wasn't a lot of surprises that I found cool or engaging necessarily. So that's why I wouldn't say this is one of my favorite episodes for that.
Yeah, I just really liked seeing Gary with his
Hmm.
Blastoise, Gary with the Umbreon. What
Yeah,
else?
that's
Gary
fair.
with what other Pokemon?
Electivire.
Electivire, of course, yeah. It's just like three like very strong Pokemon. It's like, oh,
Mm.
okay, you're cool. I like it.
Yeah, it was nice to see Umbreon. We haven't seen it in like a long time, actually. Um, but I don't remember if it's clear or not. But I'm pretty sure Squirtle was Gary's starter, and then he caught Eevee along the way.
Yeah, I don't remember like the timelines of all that.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
But yeah,
there's one thing that I think we missed in episode 44 that
sure.
deserves a mention.
What's that?
This scene where Jesse's like falling asleep during
The
their
motto?
little motto, and then after that is like when
Oh
James is
yeah.
fighting them, and then each of like the main characters have like their little anime like pictures, like is like full on anime style like faces. Do you remember that?
Kind of.
To me,
Like
it seemed it
which
was like an action,
characters?
and it was like Brock, Dawn, Ash, I
Okay.
believe. And it was like full
Oh
on
yeah.
like attacking, like a big fight anime style
Hmm.
drawing to that scene, and I thought that was really good. I like that.
Yeah, and the thing there is that they're all mad at Team Rocket for like ruining their day
Yes.
so many times, and Ash goes in saying like "prepare for trouble," and then Dawn says something, and Brock says "make it double," and James is like, "Hey, no fair." So
Yeah, but
little callback there.
I like the art style
Hmm.
during that part. It was different, and it definitely
Yeah,
like stood out to me.
it was a cool compliment to what was being said there. But yeah, any other thoughts on this arc in 44, 45. Not really an arc, but just this pair of episodes covering today.
I think that's about it. I mean, we
Mhm.
went an hour and 25 minutes, so we had quite a bit to talk about.
Definitely, yeah. And if you guys have anything to talk to us about or like hearing us talk about these things, feel free to subscribe down below and you'll be able to see any new episodes as they come along. We are getting close to the end of the season and it's going to be very interesting as we close out the last arc here. But yeah, as always, feel free to share if you have someone who's trying to get into Diamond and Pearl and wants to check out the anime. That's what we're all here about. Different experiences for sure. Brady, again, hasn't played the game, so Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl will be your first time in Sinnoh, correct?
Yes, and I'm really excited for it.
Yeah. Do you think you'll try to get Shieldon on your team? A Electivire?
I guess it just kind of depends. I'm planning on maining, like I'll buy both the games, of course, but I'm planning on maining Diamond.
Mm-hmm.
So it just depends on if they let me get Shieldon or if I can only have Granados or what.
If the version exclusives stay the same?
Yeah, or if they like let you have a choice between the two. Um, but honestly, I'd probably choose Granados anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Maybe I will go with Shieldon just because it's different
Yeah.
and it's like against the grain for me. But that'll be good.
Totally, yeah. It's kind of nice to do something that's like a little outside of what you would normally do for team choices.
Yes.
But yeah, that has been it for us. This is episode 26 of Sights on Sinnoh, and we are going to be covering a special episode next time with JM and Karina. So stick around for that. Brady, as always, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
And if people want to see more of you, where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitch and Twitter at Cymbacoil, Cymbacoil.
Yeah, and I would end up super happy if people listening subscribe to the channel. So feel free to do that. But this has been Sights on Sinnoh, and we will catch you next time. So until then, see you in Sinnoh.
Smell you later.
Oh no, you're no.
I was waiting all episode for that.
Dang, did not see that coming. All right,
Oh,
and
there's a
stop.
Charizard at my house.
Oh my